Tonight, we're turning again to the greater Los Angeles area, where firefighters are now fighting 5 wildfires at once. Collectively, those fires have burned more than 25,000 acres in just the past 36 hours, completely destroying at least 1,000 buildings. Just before we got on air tonight, officials announced 2 schools have been completely destroyed by these fires. Officials also announced that all schools in the Los Angeles Unified School District, which is the second biggest school district in the United States, that they will be closed tomorrow because of the crisis playing out in Los Angeles. These fires are all happening in relatively dense urban areas, and they have forced more than 100,000 residents to evacuate their homes, to cut off power for hundreds of thousands of customers, and they have left at least 5 people dead. Now, to understand how these fires got so bad, experts are pointing to wind and water. In cold months, California faces a unique topographical threat. That's the Santa Ana winds. High-pressure pockets of air from dry desert regions in the east race down the mountains toward lower-pressure pockets of air by the coast, the west. That air gets faster and warmer as it literally races downhill, which is how the wind has created gusts of up to 100 miles per hour around these fires. Now, these Santa Ana winds are abnormally strong, the strongest in more than a decade, but experts do not think that they alone would have caused fires this destructive. Those hurricane-force winds were made extra dangerous by the rain and the lack thereof in Southern California over the past few years. 2022 and 2023 were some of the wettest rainy seasons ever recorded in Southern California. But in the past 8 months, a lot of the region has seen less than a quarter inch of rain, and that comes after a summer of record-breaking heat. Now, all of that means that the vegetation of Southern California, the trees and the bushes and the grass, all of that spent years growing, especially in those wet years, only to spend the past 8 months drying out and then becoming giant piles of fuel for these fires. Now, normally Los Angeles would start seeing rain in the month of November, which would lower the fire risk, but it did not this year. And that confluence of factors, the abnormally strong winds and the abundance of dry, fire-prone vegetation, both of those factors are likely getting worse because of climate change, by the way. Those factors are what experts are saying made these fires so bad. As to why these fires have been so hard to put out, well, officials are also pointing to wind and water. Overnight last night, the winds were so strong that all firefighting aircraft were grounded. Without air support to do water drops, firefighters on the ground were stuck fighting those flames alone. Not only did that mean that firefighters had to fight 4 major fires across different corners of the region, but it also meant strong winds picked up embers, sending them miles from the main fires themselves and creating small spot fires in what's being called ember casting. Even with 9,000 firefighters in Los Angeles County, that meant personnel was spread incredibly thin. Here was LA County Fire Chief Anthony Marone earlier today.
There are not enough firefighters in LA County to address 4 separate fires of this magnitude. We're doing the very best we can, but no, we don't have enough fire personnel in LA County between all of the departments to handle this.
To make matters worse, water for firefighters' hoses was in short supply. LA's hydrant system primarily relies on 3 large water tanks, each one holding around 1 million gallons. By 3 a.m. last night, they had all run dry. 15 hours of fighting multiple major fires at once had depleted the tanks faster than they could be refilled. Now, tonight, thankfully, the winds have calmed down enough for firefighting aircraft to once again provide air support. Additional firefighters are also on their way, coming from all across California as well as Arizona, and they are expected as early as tonight. And President Biden has now signed a major disaster declaration, which will clear the way for federal funds and resources to help fight these fires. But officials warned that Los Angeles is not out of the woods yet. The National Weather Service is cautioning that although the winds will continue to die down throughout tonight, another round of powerful Santa Ana winds could pick up again as early as tomorrow afternoon. Officials also warned that despite what is now nearly 36 hours of continuous firefighting from LA's 9,000 firefighters, 4 of the 5 major fires are still at 0% containment and could continue to spread. Evacuation zones around these fires have expanded multiple times in the past 24 hours, and officials ask that anyone near the fires keep up to date on all evacuation orders and warnings, that they pack a go bag, make an evacuation plan, and leave immediately when ordered to do so. We'll go now to NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky, who is live in Altadena, California. Morgan, what can you tell me about the status of the fire there?
Alex, the status is heartbreaking in every direction you look. We're here in Altadena on one of the main thoroughfares. I look through a smoky haze this way. I see nothing but fire trucks. We have another one passing me right now, and I'm standing just across the street from a junior high that will likely be a total loss as a result of this Eaton fire. This time yesterday, Alex, I remember seeing the notification. It was about 400 acres. It is hard to fathom how this time tonight we are looking at a blaze that's now 10,000 acres and responsible for claiming at least 5 lives. And I think what's most important to say is that it is still very much actively burning in and around the hills of this area. We've had a chance to report on some of the firefight. And Alex, you mentioned it, but I want to reinforce this fact for everyone listening and for everyone watching tonight. And that is when we saw an apartment building engulfed in flames, I saw the fire engine pull up this afternoon, a fire captain have one of his firefighters attach a hose to a hydrant, and that hose didn't fill up, Alex. And I asked the captain, out of every 10 hydrants you attach to today, on average, how many are you getting full water from? He says little to none. And it was at that point that really the whole crew stopped, looked up at this apartment building, and they realized there was nothing they could do except try to spray what little water they had in their truck on an opposing building to keep it from heating up and igniting from this fire that was happening next door. And I didn't just hear it from that fire captain, I heard it elsewhere. And that is certainly going to be one of the aspects of this firefight that's going to be focused on in the days, weeks, and months ahead, because I don't know that I've ever covered a fire and seen so many firefighters and so many fire trucks and so little water being used on one blaze after another. And just to reinforce the scale of this tragedy, this generational disaster happening here in Southern California, Alex, a gentleman pulled up in his car with his wife while we were watching that same apartment building burn. He said he wanted to check on his mother's home, which was next door. He was relieved to see that it was still standing, but when he realized there was no water, you could just see him become crestfallen in an instant. I asked him, have you been personally impacted by this elsewhere? He said, between myself and my wife, we have 5 family members who have lost homes as a result of this fire. A fire that's one of 4, perhaps 5, burning in this area, Alex, that's still burning at this hour, and it'll be burning this time tomorrow.
That is just a catastrophic situation, Morgan. The image of firefighters with hoses run dry is a terror. I wonder if the fact that, firefighting aircraft is back in the skies, whether that's mitigating this at all, what you can tell us about other methods by which they're trying to extinguish these blazes.
We have seen some aircraft return to the skies. Winds have died down somewhat. There is a hope that they can make some progress, although I should add that there's only a limited amount of firefighting that aircraft can do under the cover of darkness. We know that some helicopters are specially equipped with infrared that'll allow them to do that, but those massive planes that we see during the day, they typically don't operate at night. If there is any solace here whatsoever, it's that these winds have somewhat died down and that crews can perhaps position themselves in more defensive areas as some of these spot fires pop up. But Alex, you walk up and down this main thoroughfare in Altadena, just in a few minutes' time, you'll meet someone, if they have not personally lost a home, who has lost a business, or may have lost both. Alex.
Morgan, you're doing some essential reporting there. This is just an unfathomable level of destruction. Thank you for that, Morgan. Stay safe. I want to note that that a brush fire has broken out in the Hollywood Hills area of Los Angeles near Runyon Canyon. That's according to the city's fire chief, who said that at a news conference this evening. A mandatory evacuation order has now been issued for that area.